Hey everyone, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode. Today we are going over the Canyon Storm Battlefield. This is the new 1v2 or 2v1, depending on which side of the battlefield you are on. And before we get started, I wanted to answer the question I get asked all the time. What is my favorite color? And it's actually purple. All right, so let's jump into this episode. Canyon Storm is a new event that's going to be happening every Wednesday morning. And this is only on the newer server, or sorry, the original servers at the moment. It's going to roll out to other servers. I don't know the exact timing on when that's going to happen. So we had our first fight last Wednesday, having our second fight this Wednesday. And I got to tell you, this is probably the coolest event I have seen in all the different fighting scenarios, Desert Storm, the season fighting, Winter Storm, Enemy Buster fighting, all that stuff, or Warzone duels. This is probably the coolest fighting I have seen. It's a lot of fun, and I think part of it's going to depend on the matchups that you have, but the fact that you can be in a really big alliance and be paired against other smaller alliances and make it a little more challenging, but with different perks. So each side has their own perk, and we'll go over that here in a minute. And I also recorded some gameplay from it from last week, so we'll be able to go through that too. But just a real quick recap what this event is. Like I said, it's 2v1 or 1v2, depending on which side of the map you are on. If you're on the Apollo squad, it is you versus two other groups. So that could be up to 40 players on the opposing side. You do have a lot of bonuses when you are on this faction. As you can see here, when you are on the Apollo side, it boosts your base durability by a maximum of 50%. So you're not just getting hit like 3 times or 4 times before you get teleported. I think it's a total of either 5 or 6 times before you get teleported, which is big. You know, Desert Storm, Winter Storm, you get hit 3 or 4 times and you're gone. This, you're going to be able to get hit multiple times and not have to worry about getting teleported, which is big whenever you have cooldowns and things like that. But moving on to the next one, this actually reduces your cooldown by 50% too. So your ability to teleport around is faster, which makes sense because you have a lot more ground to cover with fewer people compared to the other team, because it's only 20 of you versus 40 of them. And then the next one is reduces individual points required to activate skills. And we'll go over the skills here in a minute. But essentially, as soon as you start the fight, you jump in, whether you're attacking players or you're taking over these points of interest, you'll start accumulating individual points. As you do so, you'll get these abilities to use. When you're on the Apollo side, that time is reduced by 30%. And then reduce the active cooldown by 30% as well. So like I said, you build up those points to activate the skills, and then there's a cooldown after a period of time. So then you're able to then use that ability faster when you're on the Apollo side. And much like Winter Storm, where you can send multiple teams to defend the same point, you could do that in here too, which is pretty nice, especially whenever there's only 20 of you and you're trying to reinforce buildings, and say you have a whale that's trying to just sit in one building and protect it, and there's multiple waves getting hit. They don't have to worry about having only one team being able to defend. They can send 2 in there and keep changing teams out to keep that building safe. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of strategies that come out about this. It's brand new, so everybody's trying to figure out how exactly to play this. And like I said, we'll jump in and show you a little bit of gameplay so you can see where the buildings are at. But essentially, there's going to be 4 buildings down towards the bottom, 4 buildings up towards the top where Apollo is. And then there's going to be a couple buildings, as you can see here, with the little icons in the middle. You got the Virus Lab, the Serum Factory, the defense systems. And just like Winter Storm, the defense systems actually attack other places, so they can take out troops. So if you hold one of the defense centers, the systems, it's going to send missiles to, say, the Virus Center or Virus Lab and take out enemy troops there. So this is a much more dynamic battlefield than Winter Storm. It's a lot like Winter Storm. If you were to look at this, how it plays is more like Winter Storm, but with a lot of the Desert Storm feel, because you have a lot more players. And then the fact that there can be 60 players on the battlefield at once is really cool. And before we get into the fighting, let's talk about the rewards real quick. The rewards for the individual rewards, so anybody can get these. You can get up to 10,000 honor medals, which gives you 1 legendary blueprint, for reference, you have to get 500,000 points. So it is a little bit higher than what you get in Winter Storm or Desert Storm, but still very doable, I believe, for most players. And then you have your individual rankings. These are going to be rewards based on your individual ranking for your team. And as you can see at the bottom here, it says current team Apollo. So this is based on which side you're on. And because there's only one team on the Apollo faction, you are just against yourself. The other side, there's going to be 2 teams. So it allows everybody basically 1 and 2, 3 through 6. So it splits the rewards similar to what's on Apollo, but it allows both sides to have an equal opportunity to get those rewards. If you are 1 and 2, instead of just a 1 overall for both of the alliances fighting together, each side has a potential to get the best reward. I hope that makes sense. I know this is kind of confusing until you start doing it, but like I said, you're going to have 2 teams on the other faction. Apollo is 1. So you have these 2 teams, and if you have 2 really strong players and they're fighting for number 1, it would not be fair to have only one of them walk away with the top prize. This gives them the ability to split this with 1 and 2 at the top there, which is nice. This is the only reward that you're going to be worried about in the individual ranking. The assistant stuff, the strategy stuff, not really a big deal. Not a whole lot there. I mean, it's a decent amount of gold, but overall, you're really looking at the honor medals here. That's the big ticket item. And then battle results. This is very important. If you only do Team A, these are the rewards you're going to get. If you do Team A and B, these are the rewards you can potentially get. So it's kind of nice if you do all in, you focus on one team, you go Team A and that's it. You do get 5,000 honor medals, but I think you're limited. You're only going to have 20 people that can participate instead of the 40 people if you split A team and B team and have more people participate. That's up to 60 members because you can have 20 actively playing, and then you have 10 that are sitting and able to rotate in. So that's 30 players, and then 60 if you do Team A and B. Clicking on this little icon here, you can see it explains this to you too. Based on the detail analysis, giving up Task Force B and focusing on Task Force A gives better rewards than failing with both task force. For smaller elite alliances, it's better to focus Task Force A and drop Task Force B. So if you don't have that many active players or you just don't have that many strong players, focusing on one is fine. This is nice. You have the ability to do that, and then you get some pretty good rewards if you win. Overall, this reward system is a bit confusing, but it's very similar to Desert Storm as far as the rewards you could potentially get. The only thing is individual rankings. So no matter if you win or lose, you may still not get the maximum rewards potential in here depending on where you finish in your scoring. And then when we click on the rules here, you'll see there have the structures laid out here, and it tells you how many points each building gets as you capture it. So if you want to plan for who's capturing what and how many points you need per second, this will tell you what is what. And when you capture something, you're going to have a countdown, kind of like the old school Desert Storm rules where you had to capture something for like about a minute before you start getting points. You're going to get points as you're capturing it, but then after you actually capture it, you're going to get even more rewards. All right, now let's move on to the skills. These are the skills I was talking about. You need to score points in the battlefield in order to activate these skills, and it'll tell you right here the consumption is going to be 500,000 points. You need 500,000 points in order to actually use some of these skills. The artillery turret down here, that's 750,000 points, and then 1 million points in order to use the Judgment Day, which is the Adjudicator on the Apollo faction. So this is something, the Adjudicator gets picked before the fight starts, and it's one person, and you get to use this skill. And you can read through what each one of these does. They're pretty useful, whether it's you're attacking and you got the seismic tower, the field hospital. Field hospitals are available on both factions, but the seismic tower and the artillery turret, those are dependent on which faction you are on. A really good strategy with the field hospital is definitely to partner up with other field hospitals, teleport around and go to your big players and try to heal up their troops or swarm together into a big fight. and be able to heal up your players as you're fighting and you're taking on the other team. Okay, now let's pull up the fighting and let's jump over and see what that all looks like. Just like Desert Storm, you're able to either enter the battlefield or you can go watch, whether you're a participant or if you are just another member of the Alliance, you can click on the Go Watch and see what everybody's doing. You can see I am going through the tutorial here and it tells you what the buildings are, how you can see where the points are being scored up at the top, who is capturing what buildings on the right, which is pretty cool. Similar to Desert Storm and Winter Storm, you have the map and you can click around the map. Unfortunately, this is not super easy to navigate on the phone. I will say that it probably is going to be easier on a PC because you're able to see this on a bigger screen and you got a wider field of view. Because clicking around on the phone, I felt it was a little clunky. It's a lot of empty space, like Winter Storm or Desert Storm. It's a very, very big battlefield because you're going to have up to 60 players in here. So they had to make it really big. And now looking at the map, you can see there are 12 total buildings. That's a lot of buildings to spread out and capture when there are only 20 of you on the Apollo side. So plan accordingly. This is probably going to take a lot more strategy than the Desert Storm will, but the buildings open up at different times. So pay attention to how long they take. Some of them, it's going to be, about 5 minutes after the fighting starts. Some of them are about 7 minutes. And then the other one, the virus lab, is going to be about 10 minutes after everything opens. So pay attention, have a strategy, because the fighting is going to be focused initially, a lot like it is in Desert Storm, where you just have a few buildings on the outside open, and then the center buildings open. This is going to be very similar to that. So be prepared, have your teams ready to go to whatever points of interest to fight. Make sure people are paired up together so you don't have people just floating around and have one or two at different buildings and then you have 6 people all at another building, because you're going to have a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time. If you look at the building here, you can see the capture time going down on it, and then it's also showing the points per second that the building is giving out to. And then this one was just hit. You have boxes that spawn, very similar to Desert Storm, so you can capture boxes and start the timer, but you're still accumulating points at the same time. And here I am just mindlessly clicking around, checking out the bases and seeing where stuff is at, trying to find these buildings. And this is what I was saying. It's kind of hard to navigate this on the phone, trying to figure out where the buildings are to capture in relation to where the strongholds are from where the people spawn in at. Now here we are going to see our first skill being used. I believe this is the seismic ability. So it smashes down and does damage to the other buildings. It does building damage as well as takes out some of their troops. So if somebody's getting low, it's going to start taking out their troops and take out their building. And then the other one that just spawned here, that's one of the hospitals. So you can see it's healing troops and bringing troops back to the base. It's not going to do anything else aside for healed troops. So that's why I said it's good if you partner together with other buildings to help heal your troops up. And then this one is going to be the artillery cannon. You can see it spawns in and targets a nearby enemy base and starts shooting and doing damage to their troops. It's not going to do anything to their durability. It's just going to start taking out troops out of their troop count. It's nothing too crazy, but taking out a few hundred troops for free out of another enemy's base is pretty useful. And whenever you need this use it for an advantage, taking out troops whenever you're running low on troops. If you're low on any troops at all to be able to defend, at least you could still jump in and use this ability and take out other troops of the enemy team, which is pretty nice. I wanted to jump ahead here a minute and show you guys these. These do spawn in the power stations, and similar to Desert Storm, you're able to send troops out and farm these. So if you're trying to find a way to gain points and get an advantage, you can just sit inside of your little building here and farm these. And like Desert Storm, where they're in the middle of the map, these actually spawn right outside of the spawn point. So it's very easy to get these points. If you're starting to run low on troops, you can sit inside the spawn points and send your troops out there. And here is the new missile defense support center, which is going to send out the missiles to whatever enemy buildings are being held. So if you capture these, it's going to allow you to take out troops out of those buildings. So if there's a mega whale in there, it doesn't matter. It's still going to take out the same number of troops and make it a little easier for you to maybe to attack them. I was finally able to jump in at the end because I was an alternate. And this is very interesting because you can see the bases of players that were in here and it says exited on their name. So if they were in there fighting but left, it's still going to show them in there, but it says they exited. So there's a lot of bases that are sitting here that have exited. I don't know if it means that they quit and they never moved their base, they never got teleported and went back to their hive, but they exited in the middle of the fight. You can still hit them. So that is pretty interesting. Their base just doesn't disappear. It still stays in the game. But here I was able to jump in. I was taking a look and seeing how the point system works, the cooldown. So you can see my teleport. I have less than 2 minutes before I can teleport. And that's going to be a little bit faster than the other faction because I was on the Apollo side. And here I started farming these. I just wanted to see how quickly the points accumulate. And you can see I have the seismic tower ability. And the points, not super fast when you're farming. So probably fighting, like everything else, is going to give you the best bang for your buck when you're trying to quickly level these up. And here I am getting attacked. And you can see my base durability there. I take one attack. I probably still got another, 6-7 attacks left before I get teleported. So he's not going to be able to teleport me in time before this fight is over. And that is it for this episode. There's the end of the fight. We ended up winning. It was a lot of fun. Only about a few of their players showed up. But as always, guys, thanks again for watching. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.